I want to try, black, they get excited because it's a novelty for them.
It's not you, it's the way you're learning.
Every time you do it, you get a little bit better because you're facing rejection.
Height doesn't play as big of a role as guys imagine.
She just might be really into like bald guys for whatever reason.
If you're losing hair, just a lot of girls like it.
Oh my God, I don't want to approach her because she's too young.
Your brain is gonna try all of these things until it finds something that makes you not approach a girl.
I did a lot of Daygame when I was fat and I lost 60 pounds. Didn't make that much of a difference.
Anyways, okay, let's get to the controversial topic.
Cancel time. Welcome to the Inner Confidence Podcast, where we bring you men's dating and lifestyle advice that doesn't suck. I'm your host, Robbie Kramer, a former collegiate golfer turned poker pro turned finance guy who became obsessed with learning about male-female attraction and dynamics and passionate about teaching men how to improve and optimize their love life. Tune in each week and we'll bring you the latest and greatest strategies on how to get more dates, how to build a thriving social circle that brings the best men and women into your life, how to become a better networker, and how to design a lifestyle that makes all your buddies jealous. If you're new to the show, I recommend you download my first date protocol. It's the best piece of content I have. It'll help you optimize your first date and subsequent dates. And I like to connect with my listeners personally. So if you want to grab a copy of that, please send me a direct message on Instagram. I'm at Robbie_Kramer. Now let's dive into this week's content. Yo, we are back with one of my favorite guests. We've had him on the show a bunch of times, and that is St. Robert Daygame. Welcome back, man. Today we have a really interesting topic. We're going to talk about what sort of expectations you can expect. That was a dumb way to say that, but what you can expect from meeting women during the day. And for those of you who aren't meeting women during the day, I would highly suggest you rethink that strategy because there's only really 4 ways to meet women. The first way is through your social circle. And most guys have a social circle that consists of like a bunch of dudes, maybe a couple cute girls who are usually in a relationship. And then once those girls are single, everyone's, trying to get with them and your competition is high and that usually doesn't work out. Or there's no girls in your social circle. So that's a horrible strategy for most guys. The next way is, night bars, clubs. You call that night game if you want. That can get expensive. It's bad for your body. If you're more introverted, you're not going to like those environments. Online dating is the next way. And with online dating, we all know the quality suffers. It's just really difficult to actually date women who are hot and beautiful because those girls don't hang out on online dating sites. They just have those profiles to get validation and attention from men. But when push comes to shove, they're usually flaking on those dates and hanging out with their friends. They're getting invited to cool stuff. Or they're going on a date with a guy they actually met in real life. So that's where Daygame comes in. It's free. It's good for you. It's good for your confidence. Every time you do it, you get a little bit better because you're facing rejection and you're doing something that's scary. So what can you expect in the process of becoming good at Daygame? How hard is it? We're going to get into all that stuff today with St. Robert, who's an expert on this with he's been coaching guys for years. And he always has, I think, the most cutting edge sort of Daygame advice out there. So.
Well, I like the intro. Very nice. So I'm going to skip all the I'm this and that. I've done this and that. I assume like most of the guys watching this already know me. If not, Robbie, you gave a great intro. Thank you for that. And we're going to talk about Daygame I split this in 2 parts. Number 1, we're going to talk about, and by the way, I will assume that you know what Daygame is. We're going to skip all of that, and we've talked about that in the past. I don't want to waste time on that. So you are either going out or you're kind of dabbling in Daygame. You tried it, or you're thinking about trying it, and you have some questions. And first, we're going to cover the typical questions guys have. For example, I'm a short guy. Will Daygame work for me? I have a beer belly. I'm not super fit. Like, how do I compete with all the guys in our social circle? Will Daygame work? We're going to talk about race because I get a lot of questions. I am black. I'm a brown guy. How do you coach brown guys? How does that work? Like, what can I expect? We're going to talk about introverts, extroverts, which for me is very interesting because I once published a podcast episode about who does better, introverts or extroverts. And I wrote all the script and everything. But then I said, my conclusion was that extroverts do better. But then I looked back at all the guys I've coached I put them in two kind of columns, introverts and extroverts. I compared the results, and I was shocked to see the results. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to, at the end, talk about age, because guys are day gaming. Some guys are maybe in their early 20s, and then you have guys in their late 40s, even guys in their 50s are day gaming. So what can you expect? And I'm not going to tell you kind of, oh, you can get any chick regardless of your age and day game works. That's bullshit. That's someone trying to sell you whatever they're selling. I'm going to give you sort of like a more realistic view on what you can expect in different age groups. That's going to be the first part. And then I want to talk about, okay, let's say you're starting to learn, you're going out, and you probably understand that it's not like every chick you say hi to is gonna be super excited to go out with you and you're gonna sleep with all of them. And it's not like that. But we're gonna talk about the typical journey guys go through from the beginning when they start day gaming, but they don't really know what to say, don't know what's up. And then they start learning some things. So what can they expect throughout the journey? How those, we call them ratios, approach to lay ratio, how many girls you have to say hi to sleep with one of them, how that changes over the day game journey. And one thing I wanna kind of mention, when I talk about experience, everything that I'm gonna talk about is based on experiences coaching people. Because when I talk about people that I'm coaching, I'm partially in control of what they're saying and what they're doing. I'm making sure their game is on point. So I don't like if I was talking about people in general, it's a little bit different. Maybe they're saying the wrong things, and then it's harder to talk about that. But the important part is some people learn faster, others learn slower. But if you're learning on your own and aren't getting laid in a few months, the one thing I want you to understand, it's not you. Is the way you're learning.
Right.
So as long as
you're doing
you fit
it wrong.
in the as long as you fit in, I'm going to talk about the height and the fitness and the race and introverts, extroverts, and age. As long as you're fine with all of those things, if you're still not getting results, it's not about you. It's about things you're doing, things you're saying, and but that's a whole different thing that we're going to close with. Okay. So the most popular question, or one of two most popular questions I get in terms of will this work for me? The number one I would say is race, but I want to talk about that a little bit later so that we get canceled, maybe 10 minutes into the podcast.
Better to get canceled 10 minutes in than 15 in, right? Just rip off the Band-Aid.
later. So the later the better. Let's talk about height first. And height is a very easy one to answer, because, and this again, the one thing with height, this is a short answer. I have not seen a significant difference in the results guys get based on their height.
Really?
Yes, there are. Well, hear me out.
Yeah, okay.
There are girls that will not like you because you are too short. There are girls that are not going to like you because you're too fat. And there are at the same time girls that are not going to like you because you're too skinny. There are girls who like skinny guys. There are guys who like dudes like me. There are guys who will not like you because you don't have hair, because you have like a bunch of tattoos. You can't see with this shirt, but I'm a little bit tattooed. And so there's always girls that are not going to like someone. But if you're doing the right things in day game, there are exceptions, of course. But in general, height doesn't play as big of a role as guys imagine. For a lot of guys, most of the cases, most of the times when I hear someone says, I'm a short guy, that's why day game doesn't work for me, girls keep rejecting me, they're just saying, oh, it's not my fault, I'm just a short guy. Oh, it's not me, I'm just whatever, I'm losing hair, that's why they don't like me, it's not my game. No, it's your game.
Right.
Except, yes, again, as I said before, there are girls who are not going to like you because you're too short, too whatever, but that's, each girl has her type, and there is some role, but that role is very small. And the one thing I want to mention about height is height comes under looks. And looks are what? That's how tall you are, of course, but that's also how are you dressed? How is your grooming? How is your, everything else? What is the
Body
image
language.
You are presenting?
Would you put body language under looks too?
I'm going to say something very unpopular in the day game world.
Mm-hmm.
That guys are going to click away. I think body language in day game is extremely overrated.
Okay.
I look at my students on the first day of coaching. Unless they're making dumb mistakes, I just stop looking, because it's like, unless you're leaning in and kind of you're. I had that mistake when I was starting out. I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'3", and I was approaching shorter girls. I was kind of crunching. But once you fix mistakes like that, I really don't think body language is that important. Just don't make the weird mistakes.
What if they have really
don't.
feminine? I think there's probably some body language disqualifiers, right? Like if there's a
Yes.
certain way that you hold your hands, or if you're doing something that's like really obvious and off-putting, that could just be like an immediate disqualification.
But if you kind of look at the hierarchy of things in looks, of like the height and style and grooming and everything, out of 100 guys, only a very small percentage is going to be making those disqualifying mistakes in their body language. Out of the guys I see, it's really a small percentage. And then you can, okay, he's rolling his shoulders in, tell him to put his palms in his back pockets. That automatically straightens your back. And
and you can usually diagnose a lot of that stuff just in their photos before even meeting them.
Yeah.
Because really bad body language, which is typically really feminine body language that minimizes yourself a lot, like you were saying, is pretty much a problem across, wherever whatever he's doing in any situation, that's usually going to shine through. And one thing you mentioned about girls having different tastes and preferences as far as looks go. Yeah, they've done studies that show that like the range of what women find attractive is crazy. It's like one woman might find something else incredibly attractive, right? She just might be really into like bald guys that are like 20 pounds overweight for whatever reason, versus like the Brad Pitt looking skinny guy, and those ranges vary incredibly over the sample sizes. So it's like, if you're obviously, there's going to be a higher percentage of the population that wants a tall, good-looking, GQ Model-esque guy. But there's so many women that don't give a shit about that at all, and who actually prefer something else. That's the beauty of Daygame, is you can meet that girl too.
I'm going to give you a response to this that So game versus looks, and there are two things. So one is, you just have to pass the bar. Like, that's it. Right. If you're not really ugly, you're okay. Like, that's it. Of course, if you're model looking, it's gonna make things so much easier. Yes, you're gonna get to, at least your first lays are gonna come easy. When it comes to girls that are harder to sleep with, the really beautiful ones, or you wanna go out with beautiful Ukrainians, that's a whole different story. Your looks don't mean anything. You wanna go to these more traditional places, like more traditional girls in general. That's where the looks play less of a role, because they will still test you and they'll do a bunch of stuff. But good looks, yes, you will be getting faster your first lays, but your social skills are much more important. And I remember this guy who I met him we decided to do like a consult over a beer, and he walks in, and dude is model looking. He was early 20s, real like square jaw. Like, seriously, dude was hot as fuck. He walks in, and I was like, what the hell do you want from me? And then he just says, yeah, maybe you need a therapist instead of you. Girls were stopping. But since he was so shy and he didn't know what to say, those girls were leaving. So if you're really good looking, you're going to get girls easier to stop in an easy or average Daygame city. Not in New York City. That's a whole different story. In New York City, no one cares how you look.
Right. They're on a mission. They're going.
It's a busy city. They don't care about. They're too busy to worry about how you look. So it's gonna get you your foot in the door, but it's not gonna get you on a date. So that's the thing with looks. But in terms of height, so the thing to finish the topic of height, there are many things in looks. So it's height, your style, your grooming, the image you're portraying in general, and it's a simple solution. You can't control your height, but you can completely change your style. You can change your grooming. If you're losing hair, just Some girls like it. A lot of girls like it. It's a turn on for them. Just do it. Just go for it. If you're
It's
kind
better
of
to make a
jawline
choice,
isn't,
as I always say.
yeah,
Like
yeah, make a choice.
balding is not a choice. Bald, now that's a choice.
Yeah,
right?
that was what was the guy's name?
I don't remember who said that.
The guy who wrote the game.
Oh, Neil Strauss.
Oh, okay. That's from the game. Yeah, that's
Is
from
it?
the game.
Yeah.
He shaved his hair. Someone told. I think Tyler told him that or something like that.
Right.
So focus on the things you can control in your style. If you're a shorter guy, but you have good style, good grooming, you've done what you could, the things that you do, like the overall, you add those things in an equation, and at the end, the result, like the end number is going to be good enough, and there's nothing to worry about. So that's about height. Fitness level, this is going to be short. Out of all the guys I've worked with, I've met one guy who was too obese to get results in Daygame. But so if you have a beer belly or anything like that, obviously it's better if you don't have it. But if you're saying I'm going to lose my beer belly and then Daygame, then you're just procrastinating. Start Daygaming. You're going to walk 2 hours a day talking to girls, and you know, slowly it's going to go away. So, but yes, you have to be really, really obese for that to play a role in Daygame. I've coached guys with beer bellies, and I coached this 42-year-old guy, and we were in Poland, and he was going on dates with like 22-year-olds. He had a real beer belly, like a proper, no hair, proper beer belly. Shitty, like an average style. But he was an artist. He was outgoing, good with people, and learned the right things to say, and everything worked at the end. So fitness level, don't worry about it.
I would agree, because I did a lot of Daygame when I was fat, and then I lost 60 pounds, and didn't make that much of a difference, to be honest. I felt a lot better, which certainly I think made a difference with my inner game. But as far as like getting girls to stop, give me their number, go on dates, not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and some of the biggest, there's one guy very big in Daygame, and he's very overweight, like not obese, but he's proper overweight, and he's still doing incredibly well. But he's one of the Daygame gods, so you can't really. He justifies it with so much game that. Okay,
what's his name? Can we drop that?
Yad. That's Yad.
Yad. Okay, yeah, he's overweight.
Yeah, Yad
sure.
is an incredible Daygamer, does incredible things. If you're able to learn by observing someone, because I've talked to a lot of guys who have had coaching from him. He's not good at explaining what he does, but if you're good at learning by observing him, then he's a great Daygamer. Yeah, I've never met him, never spoke to the guy. I would love to kind of meet him. We have friends in common, but it's never happened. And I understand he's very artistic and hard to schedule something with.
Well, not only is he fat, but he's pretty ugly too. So it's like, if a guy like that can get, incredible results, then no one has an excuse.
Yeah, and he was, one of the guys who basically invented London Daygame model today with Tom and Andy Yosha and all of those guys as well. Anyways, okay, let's get to the controversial topic. Let's get to the topic of race.
There we go.
And we have two people most people who ask this question are either black guys or brown guys. White guys obviously don't ask this question, Asians don't really. They don't really ask that, but this is the most common question is from black people and from brown guys. So let's start with black. It's a shorter answer, and this actually comes from an experience. I have a wing, Mr. T, in New York City. And he's black. And his experience in New York City was that he was getting a lot of rejections. But you have to understand that in New York City, in all the popular areas, you have a lot of people trying to sell you stuff all the time. A lot of beggars. And if you kind of walk down the street, then you'll see a lot of black people doing that. And he realized that New York is such a big city that people don't have time to pay enough attention to what you're saying. They'll first look at you, make a quick assumption about what it is you want, and then react accordingly. So he realized he has to dress so well that there is no way anyone is going to think he's not doing very good in his life. So he changed his style, started looking very nice, I'm not talking like walking down the street in a suit or anything like that, but just dressing nicely. So people are, the first kind of judgment is going to be, this dude is doing good. What does he want? Why is he talking to me? And then they will give him time of the day. And I'm saying this is a guy from Northern Eastern Europe, and this is a place where, like, in Europe, I would say there's much less racism. And the first time I saw racism was when I went to the US, and I was surprised. I was really surprised to see it. And I had never experienced it in my life before. I had never seen people kind of judge each other by color too much. And the US it exists in the US. So you just have to understand that that's the reality. You just have to swallow that.
In my experience, it was kind of like opposite racism against Black guys in Eastern Europe. When, I've taken a lot of clients to Croatia, Ukraine, Poland, and I know a lot of Ukrainian girls, and they all say the same thing. Oh, I want to try, Black. They get excited because it's a novelty for them.
Yes.
So and in general, I feel like the people that I've met in Eastern Europe, they don't see Black people very often. So when they do, they're just like, oh, wow, a Black person. That's interesting. Versus, in the US where it can be ugly and nasty. So it's more of like I wouldn't really call that racism, or I don't know the actual definition per se, but it's not like a negative sort of thing. It's more of just interesting.
Curiosity. Yeah. So
right.
A simple thing you have to understand if like what I've noticed with Black people, it's simply you have to ask who do I look like? What's the first impression people are having when they see me on the street? If they're very busy, if they're in a rush, make sure you look like someone who's doing good. I don't mean like pretend to be someone you're not, but just represent your status in life, at least in some way. If you look at kind of people asking for something on Broadway and you look how you're dressed, make sure you're not dressed like everyone else. Make sure you're looking sharp. That's for Black guys. And then let's talk about brown guys. And I think out of all the questions about race, I get questions from brown guys the most. And and this really comes down. I've had a bunch of conversations, by the way, about this with other day gamers, with brown day gamers, specifically with brown day gamers, because I did a podcast episode about this, and then I talked to a few what their views are, because I know some very, very good brown day gamers. And one realization we had, it depends whether you're born where you live. Or like let's say we're talking about states. If you're born there, and if you grew up in the American culture, then you probably will be more like people will. How to say that? Like you're gonna be doing better. That's it. You're right. But it's not. The reason for that is very interesting. So, but if you're recently immigrated, and this is something that girls told me and other day gamers pointed out to me, especially the brown guys. So if people have recently immigrated from the countries where they immigrate from, the bar for your style and hygiene is very different there from the USA. And I'm not saying this is what other brown day gamers told me, that they immigrate with having those standards of their home country as like what they do. And in the US, it just doesn't work. So it comes down to style and hygiene. And again, I've heard this from brown day gamers, and I've heard this from girls as well. So if you have recently immigrated in the USA, or maybe London, if that's the problem there, I haven't talked to brown day gamers in London. Make sure your style and grooming is following the US standards, not the standards of your country, of the country where you're originally from. Even knowing that people who immigrate to US very often come from more wealthy backgrounds, because you need money to go to the US, to go to study there. And so make sure you have those things covered. If you're unsure about those things, get professional help. With style especially, talk to a stylist, get a stylist to take you shopping, figure out the style that would work for you. And simply look in the mirror and ask, who do I look like? Do I look like geeky IT student, or do I look like that hip Indian DJ in the college? And that's it. Look at stereotypes. Everything in looks actually is based on stereotypes. What's my stereotypical image? Do I look like? You can think about movie characters. Which movie character do I look like? And that's it. If you look like a fuckable movie character, you're probably fuckable. All is good.
That's a great way to model your style too, is you find a celebrity that you relate to and you just copy what he wears.
Exactly.
And another thing, this might be controversial, this could get me canceled, is I tell a lot of my, brown students that, especially if they're, in the US and they have an accent, I get them linked up with a speech pathologist and I help them on their accent reduction, because having a really strong, like, Indian accent, for example, unfortunately, the stereotype and just the stigma around that is you associate that with, it's not like the most attractive stereotype for most women, right? When they hear that accent, they're not like, oh my God, I'm so turned on. It's quite the opposite. So working on, especially if you have a really strong accent, it's very difficult to understand sometimes. Typically, what I found is a lot of brown guys speak really fast, and that's typically really, not good for day game, especially because they're not going to be able to understand you, or they're not even paying attention right off the bat. So to be able to hear what you're saying and for her to realize, like, okay, this guy is actually trying to flirt with me versus whatever other stereotypes she's got in her head, I think is super important.
Yes, 100%. I need your pathologist for some of my guys, for sure. Yeah. Because I've suggested some people to do that. That was actually, I forgot about this, but it was one of the things brought up by other day gamers. Because again, imagine New York City, people are busy. If they don't hear the first sentence you say, they're not going to waste time to ask for you to repeat it. They're just going to leave. But if you have your style figured out, if you're looking, your style and grooming is good and everything else, again, I don't see a lot of difference in results depending on race, except if you're a black guy and you go to Serbia and you have some game, then you're going to do good.
You're in good shape.
There are some places that actually I think Poland was the place where there's a lot of K-pop culture. So if you're going to fit in
Croatia
that image,
too. Oh man, when I was in Croatia with my buddy Don, and he's my buddy Don and my buddy Cameron, and then he was there with another one of his black friends, and so it was like me and 3 black guys, and oh my God, they were running circles around me the whole trip.
Yep. Same experience when me and Mr. T went to Serbia. I was doing really bad. He was doing really good. Okay, well, that's about race. So let's get to the introverts, extroverts. As I said, I wanted to do a podcast about it, and I kind of wrote the script, and I said, extroverts do better. That's the reality. Sorry. But then I wrote down a list of the guys I've coached in 2 columns, introverts, extroverts, and compared how did they do. I saw no correlation. I was very, very surprised to see that. I expected the extroverts to do better. The thing with introverts was, though, that they learn slower because the initial, the beginning was harder. They were more scared. It was harder for them to come up with kind of nice things to say, kind of good teasing and storytelling, which is the building blocks to make a girl attracted, to make a girl kind of forget where she's going, to make her forget that she's late and that she doesn't care about you because whatever. Like, good teasing and storytelling is the way you do that. And introverts were slower to learn those things. But once you learn them few structures that you just plug and play things where you can just, okay, say this sentence, and at the end, just come up with something. And once you give them that, everything was good. And at the end, they did just as well as extroverts. They just had it was much harder for them to start, but then after that, it was all right. And actually, extroverts had maybe the opposite problem, that they were so good at blah, 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 that
Mm.
sometimes when they needed to be a bit more structured to kind of, okay, now you have to build a bit more comfort, because otherwise she will go home and you're the funny guy from the street, but she doesn't know where you're from. She doesn't know what you do. She doesn't know anything about you, and she's going to flake. Well, they sometimes struggle with remembering that, oh, right, there is structure. I need to ground. I need to tell a bit about myself. And so, but at the end, I saw kind of no differences. And age, the big question of age, because most I mean, of course there are day gamers from like 20 to 50 and plus, and way over 50 as well, but let's say most day gamers that I know are gonna late 20s to mid 40s. I would say that's the biggest. It's a big gap, but that's the biggest gap. And you're done with studies, and you're working, you're building your business, and you're maybe by the way, the guys in mid 40s, maybe they are after a divorce, and
Mhm.
now they're gonna getting back in the game. So okay, in terms of in general learning day game and getting laid, and I've said this a bunch of times today, I didn't see that much difference. There is difference, but I didn't see that much difference. I would say maybe kind of course, until the 40, it's easier. Maybe until the late 30s, it is easier, but that it's not crazy easier. It's a little bit easier. And again, if they're doing the right things and saying the right things, then they're still going to be doing well. The older you get, the more important the question of style and grooming becomes. If you're losing hair and you're not doing anything about it, you look like a guy who's losing his hair. So you can look like that. No girl finds that appealing. I mean, there are exceptions, as with everything, but there are a lot of girls who will like a guy with a shaved head, and they'll think that's sexy. So either get plugs or just shave it. I know guys who've done one or the other, and a bunch of guys, but do something. Just make a decision. But the thing that's important to understand about age, if you think, or if you've heard online some coaches say, work with me, and you're 50, you're going to be banging 20-year-olds. It's bullshit. It's just to sell you stuff. Of course, let's say like a guy in his mid to late 40s, you will sleep with a 19-year-old once in a while. But if that's going to be your main demographic, the only girls you approach are just girls from 18 to 23, which are kind of considered a lot of used to consider them the hottest girls, but I kind of changed my mind about that. So yes, you're going to be sleeping with some of them, but you're going to be doing much, much, much better with girls. I would say if you're kind of mid 40s to late 40s, you're going to be doing much better with girls in their late 20s. That is still 20 years younger than you are. So I would say that's pretty damn good. And you once in a while sleep with a younger one. Some early 30s, that's obviously also fine. I haven't heard a lot of guys say that they want to go for girls in their 40s or late 30s, but a lot of guys in their late 40s are very fine with dating girls that are gonna late 20s, early 30s. That's kind of what because they're very happy to go out with those girls. When they look at girls in their social circle, it's girls their own age, and they're not really attracted to them anymore. They got into Daygame to go for the younger ones. So the
Right.
only thing I have to say, yeah, if you are over 45, then
I have one client who's in he's I think he just turned 60. And he dates women in their early 20s, and he does that through social circle
yeah,
and sugar dating, of course. I did a lot of day game with him just to more of as a practice of getting him out of his shell, more of like an inner game practice. I'm a huge fan of day game specifically for that reason, because if you haven't been out on the market for a long time, if he was recently divorced, and it's like, you need to get in the gym, and that's when it comes to dating, that's day game. And he wasn't expecting crazy results, and I told him not to expect crazy results, but he did, have some dates with some nice girls, and at the end of the day, it was a much better strategy to use, a social circle plus sugar dating, of course. But yeah, realistically, if like you said, like once you get over 50, right? Like that age thing. There's one out of every whatever percentage of women that you meet day gaming is looking for a daddy, right? But that's a
Yeah.
smaller percentage, so rejection's going to be higher.
Yeah, there are girls who will reject you just for your age, and the older you get, the more common that's going to become. But you just have to understand that that's fine. Day game teaches you to deal with rejection, and that's fine. And you can, I think you can do very, very well. Like I don't think there is difference in results that a guy who's maybe kind of mid-20s to very late 30s can get. I think they can kind of get more or less the same results, assuming that the guy in his kind of late 30s has good game, and the guy that's younger will require a little less game, but they're still going to do good. But guys in their 40s up until 50 will still be doing very okay, especially if they're fine with going out with girls in their late 20s and early 30s. Those girls are very often completely fine with dating a guy who's in his 40s, maybe even in his 50s. So that's completely fine. And of course, if you're gonna over like mid 50s or older and haven't taken good care of your body style, I mean, it's gonna get harder and harder and harder. You have to understand that. But that's about age. That's
One
about
thing,
age.
one thing also I've noticed with a lot of my students is when they are actually it doesn't really matter. Some guys even in their early 30s or late 20s are like incredibly terrified to approach a girl who might be too young, right? When you see a girl and she looks like she's 20, she might be 15, she might be 14. Or you see a girl who looks like she's 17, she might be 25. Like, it's very difficult to tell because women wear makeup and heels and who knows? And a lot of guys have so much anxiety about, oh my God, I don't want to approach her because she's too young. To which I typically say, you're if she's under 18, of course, just say, oh, sorry, I usually tell them to make a joke to make it easier. You're a little too old for me. Have a nice day. Right. But the idea is like, you're not going to be able to tell. So I'm curious if you have any suggestions for guys who are dealing with that sort of anxiety.
Yes, that's very, very common. I hear that from guys in all age groups all the time. And most often what the case is, and I have a very simple rule for them. So first of all, I think people have approach anxiety. They're just scared. And then their brain is telling them different things. For one guy, or sometimes it's going to be, oh, she's too young, or I don't know, she looks angry, she's too busy, she definitely has a boyfriend, I've approached her before. Mine was, I've approached her before. And I realized that your brain is going to try all of these things until it finds something that makes you not approach a girl. And then that's going to be the go-to weasel, the go-to reason not to approach. And I was in Serbia and I saw this girl. I was like, oh, I approached her before. And I realized, wait, she reminded me of a girl in a completely different country. And I realized my brain is playing these tricks on me. So I said, whenever I see a girl and I think I've approached her before, I'm always going to approach her out of a principle to get over this. And over hundreds and hundreds of sets, I ran into only a few girls that I had. No, not hundreds and hundreds, but this happened many times when I thought, but it was like 3 times that I remember where, okay, I actually had approached her before. And with age, it's similar. Just another trick our brains play. And for a lot of guys, this is the one that really works for them. Over time, over many approaches, you will learn to understand what are the small nuances that people in high school do that older people don't do. For example, in Riga, Latvia, back in the day, Stan Smiths, Adidas Stan Smiths, no one outside of high school was wearing them. So if you see a chick in a Stan Smiths, don't approach her. Like small backpacks and Stan Smiths, she's in high school. Don't open. But
actually, my 30-year-old ex used to wear the small backpacks all the time. She was from Republic of Georgia, but obviously it's different cultures, but these are good signals to look for.
But in general, I don't suggest looking for any signals because I think it's a weasel. And the rule I make my students is, okay, as long as you open 10 chicks in a 2-hour coaching session, you can open whoever you want. But if you're telling me she's too tall, she's too short, she's too angry, she's too young, she's too old, and I give them a timer. I set a timer for 5 minutes, and they have 5 minutes to open a girl. If they didn't, they're opening a grandma. I don't care.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
that usually helps. So very often it's simply a weasel. Obviously, if she's too young, I mean, don't be an idiot. Like, just if you learn she's too young, I just wish them a nice day. It doesn't even matter what you say. Just leave, and that's fine.
Hey, just leave.
Open the next
no
one.
big deal. You're not doing anything wrong by talking to somebody who's a certain age, right? You're not, you're not trying to sleep with them. You're not doing anything. You're just literally going over and starting a conversation.
Yeah. And by the way, an important tip I always have to any student I coach is wherever you're going, find out the age of consent. Don't be an idiot. Don't get into trouble. I mean, Europe is different than US, but in the US, it depends state to state as well. So just don't be an idiot. Know the rules, especially for guys who are maybe younger, maybe like early 20s, mid 20s. Like, you have to tell them, dude, like, you understand what's legal and what's not. Like, do legal. Don't be an idiot. Don't get yourself in trouble. But yeah, that's about it. About age.
One thing I'll add about height, which I found very helpful, is guys assume that the taller a woman is, the more she wants to date a really tall guy. And in general, hey, maybe that's true. But guess what happens with women who are really tall and really beautiful? They're also wearing heels. You know, if you think about the model who's 6 foot tall, she wears heels. Now she's 6'5", which means she's taller than everybody, right? Like, the percentage of men over 6'5" is like, infinitesimally small. And what that means is it doesn't matter if you're 5'8" or 5'5" or 6 foot, you're still shorter than her. And she's not going to be able to tell the difference. If you're 5'6", you're like, oh my God, my life would be so much better if I was 5'10". Like, sure, but with the really tall girls, it won't matter because you're all short, right? Everyone's short. So it's like, the shorter you are, go for the tallest girls, because then they can't even tell. It's typically the girls who are like 5'6" to 5'8" who care the most about height, because when they do wear heels, now they're taller than most guys, versus when they don't, they're shorter. And, if you kind of stay, obviously, like you said, don't look for these weasel ways to get out of it. But that's like a reframe that's really helped a lot of my shorter clients be like, oh, okay, now I give myself permission to approach the tallest one possible.
Yeah. And you can always test your assumptions.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, if she's walking fast, she's going to be bitchy. Well, go find out. Open like 20 girls who are walking super fast. Guys think that IOIs, indicators of interest, when she looks at you, means that she's going to react very warm. The hardest blowouts I've seen from IOIs, in general, girls who give you IOIs actually usually, like, on average, the reaction is worse than anyone else. Yeah. Okay. Let's say guys have understood, I'm short, I have a beer belly, I'm an introvert, and I'm 45. I'm gonna Daygame. What results can I expect? And let's start with the complete beginner, and we're gonna kind of slowly get to the expert level Daygamers and what they can expect. And of course, we have to understand that people learn at different speeds. Here we are talking about the average guy, because everyone's, always in comments, oh, but I am this and yeah, you're an exception, shut up. And let's talk about the average guy. So a beginner Daygamer who's maybe done, like less than 100 sets, it takes a few hundred sets to even understand the model if you're using a structured approach to Daygame. A beginner doesn't understand what's happening. When he starts to understand the fundamentals of Daygame, of the Daygame model, and let's say he understands the fundamentals, he's starting to do the right things. I would say a decent beginner will have to say hi to 100 girls to sleep with one. And that's a pretty decent beginner. That's not someone who just goes out for the first time. And of course, if you're a really good-looking guy, and if you are an easier city, you might start with 1 out of 40, 1 out of 50, maybe even 1 out of 30. I've heard stories like that. But those are exceptions. If you're an average guy, expect to have to speak to 100 girls to sleep with one once you're starting to get some results. But that will start to improve over time. If this number is not improving over time, you're doing something wrong. It means you only know the fundamentals. You're not able to understand how to kind of adapt to each girl, and you're making many mistakes. And you should be improving pretty fast. And if you're not, you're doing something wrong. Then kind of examine your game and understand what's up. That's for beginners. I would say that a Daygamer can say, I'm an intermediate Daygamer when he has around, I would say, 8 Daygame days. I like to say, 5, but then a few more just to make sure you didn't get lucky. And he should be getting laid with 1 out of 60 girls he is approaching. 1 out of 60, 1 out of 50 is a very, very decent kind of intermediate day gamer. He knows the fundamentals very well. And this guy has also figured out one part of day game and is very, very good at it. Usually for some guys, that is teasing. They get so good at teasing. The girls are just giggling all the time. And like they have one thing they're very good at, really good at. And then everything else is just fundamentals level. They're usually doing very good with girls in their city. They're usually doing good with girls that already like them. But as soon as they meet a girl from a more traditional background, they lose that girl. Or maybe a girl they don't know what to do with that girl, and she's not like, she doesn't like them off the bat, you know? She will give the guy 30 seconds or 10 to 30 seconds to listen what he has to say, and then she'll just say, I have a boyfriend, I'm late for work, sorry, I gotta go, you're so nice, this is so amazing, keep doing this. So they're not good with girls that don't like them off the bat. And of course, day game trips to places that aren't Medellin or Playa del Carmen, for these guys are a little bit hard. You hear all these stories about before the war of all these guys going to Kiev for day game trips. And you kept hearing these stories. Oh my God, I went on dates with these super hot girls. I've never been on a date with such a hot girl. It was so amazing. I did so good. I'm such a good day gamer. Yet, very rarely you heard stories of those guys getting laid with those girls, because in these traditional places, date and sleeping with someone are two very different things. They're not even in the same universe. Mm-hmm. So these guys are going good in one place with one type of girl, but as soon as it's something a bit more traditional, a bit more challenging, they have no idea what to do. They kind of lose the girls. These day game trips, if they start going on day game trips, and if they go out with different types of girls and try to understand what's happening on this date, why isn't this working? She's behaving, like you could say all the frame tests and all the behaviors you'll see and going on multiple dates. And each new location, if instead of doing what they always do, the stuff they're good at, if instead of relying on their copy-paste stuff, they stop and think, okay, what's not working here? What do I have to polish here? Let's go back to fundamentals. Let's go back to a strong stop, a good opener. If they kind of go back to fundamentals, find what's not working, and look for what's not working, that's what teaches them to adopt to different types of girls, different locations and different situations. And slowly, if they're able to pick up those things, they become advanced day gamers. The trap they fall into is sleeping with one type of girl. And we have, for example, in Canada, or I know of a few guys in Canada who are very good with Canadian girls, but now they're going out more with Russians and Ukrainians, and they just suck with them. They can't get them to come out and come back to their place. They can't understand what to do with them. And not just Russians and Ukrainians, but places with a bit more traditional girls in general. Well, but when
how important do you think making that transition from intermediate to advanced or even beginner? I mean, in my experience, the transition from beginner to intermediate is just a lot of reps. Obviously, reps are important, but having the fundamentals, doing reps, and getting to a place where you're not just a big ball of anxiety, right? Because most beginners, it's just their anxiety talking. So it's very hard for much to work when they're that nervous and anxious. But how important would you say getting approach recordings are and having those broken down, either audio or video?
That's a way to learn. I mean, that's how you're going to learn. Because if you're not progressing, then, well, you're doing something wrong. And then it's better to get someone better to look at your game. Good Wings coach or someone else, of course, can do that. So that's recordings. If you're on a budget, do recordings. If you're not, then get coaching. But about what you said about reps. So that's when I was talking about beginners. I said you're at 1 out of 100. You sleep with one girl out of 100 girls you say hi to. If you keep doing the reps and that ratio doesn't improve, then reps wasn't the problem. I would say approach anxiety, you get rid of that before you start even getting laid, I would say. Because that just goes 100 sets, 200 sets, approach anxiety kind of loses its meaning, I would say. It's really, it seems...
Depends on the frequency, of course. If you do a bunch in a row, right.
Oh no, we're talking about guys who are going out. They're going out. They're not guys who are going out once a month. Like that's no.
Right.
Then you're going to be beginner forever. And if you're fine with that, nothing wrong with casual day game.
And I think we've talked about this before. So going out is like 25 a week, right? Minimum.
If you're dedicated, yeah. Not everyone will do that, but if you want to get
guy's going
advanced,
out and
yeah.
If a guy's going out and he's doing 5 a week, what sort of progression would you expect? Or should he expect?
He should view it as a hobby, as something he does for fun. You know how summer comes and 3 times in that summer you play basketball with your buddies? Well, that's sort of what you would expect. You're right. You're out with your buddies, you're having fun. Will you go to a local competition and have any chance? No. Will you get laid once in a while? Yeah, of course. Yeah, once in a while, but you'll have to do a lot of reps. You'll get laid. Maybe you're a really good-looking dude. Maybe you're really social, and maybe you'll just need to do 30 to get laid. Maybe you open a first set and you get laid. You know, people get lucky, but there's not going to be progress. No, like realistically, there's no progress because let's say to understand the model that I'm teaching or any structured model, I would say you need 200 sets. So if you're doing 5 a week, that's 40 weeks. That's a year just to understand how it works. And the thing is, the more often you go out, the easier. The beginning is the hardest part. You have approach anxiety, and approach anxiety is really bad. But then after you overcome the approach anxiety, it turns out that was the easiest part. It's nothing. AA is just a small thing once you've dealt with it, and that's when it becomes more interesting. But also those mental ups and downs, the more you're going out, the less of those you're going to have. Of course, assuming you're not just going out like a robot and you're not exhausted and you're not just doing it robotically. You're still having fun, which is important. Because let's look at those mental ups and downs. Let's say you're a complete beginner and you need to say hi to 100 girls to sleep with one of them. And maybe 1 out of 50 will go on a date with you. Well, you will need to go out for a lot of weeks to get any results. And if that's what makes you feel good, then it probably is. Like that's what gets you addicted to Daygame. Dates and lays and these crazy adventures. It's so addictive. So you'll have to go out for many, many weeks to get one date, to get one lay. It's just very demotivating. Whereas if you're doing 25 a week or maybe more, you can expect one lay a month on average. Sometimes you're going to have a few hundred with nothing, but you're a beginner. That's fine. That's where you're learning. That's where you learn to love the game. And the more lays you get, and the better you become, the more exciting it becomes because now you're, oh my God, I'm getting laid. I'm getting all these adventures. So that's what kind of gets you hooked. That's what gets you going out all the time and more and more and more. So that's kind of how I look at it. I suggest people do more approaches and to go on day game trips if that helps. Go to a boot camp if you need to kick up your ass, but do something like move. And you're going to get to an intermediate level because guys who do very little volume, they're always going to be beginners. If you want to have those adventures and day game trips, and that's you'll need to do more. But that's where the fun starts. Why would you not have all the fun you can have? That's how I view it. And yeah. So, but the thing is, once you start going on those trips, once you start going out with different types of girls, you learn to adopt them. And then you become an advanced guy, which I consider a guy who can go to almost any place in the world and get laid there. That guy knows what he's doing. He's very advanced because he's not just good with one type of girl. He's not good with many types of girls. He's good at adapting to all types of girls and situations. That's what makes him advanced. Not that he knows what to do, but that he can figure out what to do on the spot. Most types of girls, most cities. And again, So you know how to handle all these situations. Probably a guy like this knows how to set up a threesome. And he doesn't need a complicated system he doesn't need to ask many questions about setting up a threesome because he's figured out how to talk to girls and how to set things up. He's understood how this works. And I'm talking a threesome with 2 good girls who had never done anything similar in their life. We're not talking about 2 party girls, who do this all the time. Right. But even a guy like that, and this is where we come to realistic expectations of day game, even an advanced day gamer will need to say hi to 30 girls on average to sleep with one of them. That's and I sometimes tell this to guys and they're like, what? I would talk to 5 girls and sleep with 4 of them, or like they say some ridiculous stuff that they have, and I always say, well, I have yet to see that. I've seen exceptions. I've seen guys. I met a guy who sleeps with 1 out of 20 girls in New York City. But the trick is he can't do that in other cities.
Yeah,
his system works
very
for
good there.
He's good in one location. He's cracked it. He's sleeping with those NYU girls. Lives right next to where they all are, but an advanced guy will be able to go to any place,
I agree. I mean, I've seen anyone who says that they're batting these crazy numbers is usually, like you said, a one-trick pony, someone only good in that location. There's just too much,
or someone who hasn't tried it.
Right. There's just too many things that are outside of your control, I think, when it comes to those statistics.
Yeah, and we're talking these stats. If it's less than 500 sets, if the sample size is less than 500, I don't find them reliable at all. And even 500, if you're a beginner, if it's 1 out of 100, that's tricky. If you're an advanced guy, 1 out of 30, maybe you can even kind of look at maybe 200-300 sets and kind of understand where you're at. But day game is, it's a journey. It becomes very interesting, and guys try it. And I think as long as you are giving it enough in the beginning, maybe first 6 months, you're going out, you're having fun, you're meeting a bunch of really cool dudes, because some of the coolest dudes I've met through Daygame. And if you're doing the work in the beginning and you start getting lazy, you get to that intermediate level. Intermediate level is where it becomes incredibly interesting, because you learn that, oh, wait, I learned this one thing and that improved my game. I started getting more numbers. I fixed this. I started getting more dates. They started coming out. Those numbers aren't flaking. Oh my God, now they're coming to my place. Now they're sleeping with me. So it becomes a thing to geek out on. So that's why so many IT guys love it, and sales guys love Daygame, because that's basically the same thing. Yeah. They're just selling sex,
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed in my group, and I've got the guys hooked into an approach tracker, which I've showed you before. I'd say the biggest snag for the guys in my community, and these are guys who are probably between 300 and 1,000 approaches. They've been at it for at least 3 months, up to a year or two. Most guys, I had one student just recently get to 1,000 approaches. It took him like a year and maybe a year and 3 months or something like that. And it wasn't until about 9 months in where he actually made a bet where he was going to do 25 a week. Before that, he just wasn't putting in the reps. But the biggest thing that I see happening in terms of where they're getting stuck is immediate, like, I have a boyfriend. And what I diagnosed that problem as is I think right after their opening, they're kind of just like, okay, I opened, and now, like, I thought that's all I needed to do. And they're not stacking, they're not flirting, they're not really following up. Or, they might be going into question mode, but they're just kind of rapid firing questions. They just become like, it's like, oh, she stopped and she opened. Fuck, now the anxiety kind of kicks in double, because now I have to be cool. So have you found that to be true for your students as well?
Yeah, but just in the beginning, because I teach in a fairly structured way, and they know what to do very fast. I just teach them what to say, and not in a way that they're using the same copy-paste stuff every time, but I give them the framework that they build their game around. And like day two, they know what to say. I would say at least to have a long enough conversation to get to a point where you can start asking all these boring questions and have like a normal back and forth conversation. But it's easy to do that if you learn what to say and have some structures, some frameworks for storytelling, for teasing, and especially for storytelling. And once you have that, I would say girls just, if you're saying the right things in the first maybe 1 minute, they just hook. And once a girl hooks, you can ask regular questions, you have a normal conversation. So it's very hard to learn if you don't know how to do that in the beginning. That's what makes it super, super hard, because then the girls are leaving, and you just are learning by trial and error. But if you learn how to find topics to talk about without asking boring questions, it can be stacking, or you can sometimes ask questions, but whatever. By stacking, but you got to learn what to do with those topics. And once you learn that, it becomes, I'd say, fairly easy. At the end of the day, if someone watching this is day gaming and is going out, then, well, they've met many day gamers, but they've probably seen a lot of them just are not getting any results, or they're kind of in the beginner intermediate level, and only a small percentage of day gamers ever succeed. And that's kind of what you realize when you start hanging out with day gamers. And if you subtract the good looking ones and guys who are social guys, well, how many that song, every day, what was the song? Average, everyday, normal guy.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it's. How many guys that are just average, everyday, normal guys are really, really getting good at day game? And the percentage is extremely small. And I recorded a separate video where I kind of explain. I tell 3 stories of 3 separate day gamers, and those stories, just, it's obvious after listening to those stories why most people never make it, why most people stay in that level, and what sets those guys apart, what makes them really, really good day gamers. And one of the reasons I'm gonna give one right now is they find a system that works, they find an approach that works, and they become really, really, really good at that system. And part of that is kind of getting good at stacking and storytelling, and the PDF that you talked about. It's all part of the system that I teach, and in that video, like, they'll also get access for free to all of that system and everything else. But it's better to kind of understand why you need it, because there are so many approaches to day game, but you have to understand the reasoning, how to find something that's going to work for you, instead of just looking at all the shiny things around you and then just like trying a bit from, because that's how you stay a beginner, or at most intermediate. The best way to get stuck at 1 out of 60, kind of getting lays here and there, but they're not consistent with average girls, is just looking at all the shiny things and trying new techniques all the time. Because in the beginning, you try one thing, you try the next thing, you try another thing, and it seems that it all helps you get better results. But sooner or later, you hit the wall. And whatever new things you try, they stop working, because those things are not part of one big system, and you need one big system that teaches you everything about day game to get you there. And that all of that is available for free. So I definitely suggest going and watching that video. I hope you will kind of link that thingy.
It's on guys listening. Go check that out, because like you said, not having a system, just kind of going in blind and relying on, what just pops in your brain is a recipe for failure. So
exactly,
and certain guys are going to resonate with certain systems. And I think it's super important to like find what works for you, find a mentor who, you can see yourself in, and just copy that guy, because he's already done it. Like, don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. And I'm gonna publish it in a few days, and it's gonna be online on daygamecourses.com/intermediate, because it's for intermediate guys.
Nice. Yeah, I'll link to it here too.
And that's going to be completely for free, and I'm going to link to all the good stuff I put out for free and everything else. So don't worry. It's yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else you want to know? Or
have you noticed that guys at a certain level transition out of day game and they start doing either more night game or more social circle? Did you ever, and also I'm asking specifically for you, did you, what's your kind of day game journey been like once you got really advanced? And a lot would also depend on if you're traveling, if you're nomadic versus right.
Social circle, not really, because again, guys are in their like mid-30s, 40s, and that social circle, Some guys, maybe someone wants that lifestyle where they set up their own social circle, but not really. I know a guy who started setting up his sex parties, where he invited girls he hadn't been on dates with, and they came out to this house party that ended as a sex party. And but I know guys who have transitioned to the world of BDSM and have become very curious about that, and then can explore that. But to social circle, not that many. I mean, a little bit, but it's more of a side thing. But because it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And at some point, the thing is, once you get to like a certain point, I mean, there are guys who want to keep going, but a lot of guys just are like, okay, I learned what I needed to learn. I want a girlfriend now, and then they cannot move into that. And then they start having questions. Okay, so how can I set this up with my girlfriend so that I can have my cake and eat it too? And and that's where the interesting conversation begins. But that's a whole different topic, But not transitioning to social circle. No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, I think we did a podcast on some of those things when we talked about threesomes. So
yeah.
For you guys, you should go back in the archives and dig that one up. I think.
We've done so many, man. Like one day I looked up how many we've done. It was a lot. It was maybe like 4-ish, maybe more.
This is probably the 5th one, I think. Maybe
probably.
Yeah. So, anyways, guys, go check out St. Robert's stuff. He's the master when it comes to Daygame. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, brother.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Guys, leave us a review. Don't just click away from the video. Give it a like. Give it a comment. Tell me I'm ugly. Tell St. Robert he's beautiful. And we'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you're new to the show and digging our content, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you listen or watch. But if you're not really digging it, go ahead, just don't leave us any review at all. That'd be great. If you're feeling a little bit stuck or you just want to optimize and step up your game, we've opened up a few spots in our Inner Confidence community. We're accepting applications if you want to join our select group of men and experience the radical power of accountability, cross everything off your sexual bucket list, and just become a beast who gets more stuff done. To learn more and apply, go to start.innerconfidence.com.